Hey guys, tonight we slip back into the desert's pre-dawn hush as you trudge toward that rust-speckled RV, your lantern of rebellion against a world that insists you stay small and safe. You probably won't survive this without a shred of disbelief, but remember Jane's last gasp in the Phoenix lab, a ghostly reminder that every step you take here is a dance on broken glass. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And don't forget to drop your location and local time in the comments so we can all feel somewhere less arid than the Albuquerque Basin. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Section 1, Ghosts of Phoenix Lab. You squat by the RV's open hatch, inhaling the tang of diesel and desert sage that clings to your clothes like a stubborn secret. In 1947, the first commercial jet could buzz a nearby runway at over 500 miles per hour, a mainstream fact that flashes through your mind as you recall how fast Jane's life evaporated after one wrong inhale by Jesse. Historians still argue whether post-war technology race or sheer human arrogance drove those early flights, and here, in this makeshift lab, you feel the same rush of ambition flirting with catastrophe. The night air is crisp now, the horizon's blush telling you dawn is imminent. You run gloved fingers along the saguaro-shaped mosaic under your knee. Remember that pattern from Section 4. As you test the latch on your battered cooler of ice water. It clunks shut, and you stifle your first joke. Ice in the desert. Who needs a jacuzzi when you can sanitize your lungs instead? Jesse's absence weighs heavier than the weight of that cooler. His silhouette in your memories swings between triumphant fist pumps and the hollow slump after he watched Jane slip. You ease inside the RV, the dome light flickering on like a guilty eye opening too wide. The desert breeze carries in the faint hiss of your patched reactor, your Frankenstein's monster sitting in the corner, tubes and wires trailing like medieval tentacles. A fringe chemist once claimed that singing to a reaction speeds crystal growth, a claim so bizarre you half want to hum "Happy Birthday" under that reactor's glass belly. Historians still debate whether any lab music ever worked or just soothed broken egos, but tonight, you resist the urge to serenade your own chemical nightmare. Your palms brush the ridge of that Pyrex dish from Section 6, where the blue crystals first glowed like fallen sapphires. You taste the memory of desert wind and burnt rubber, a sensory callback more potent than any lab-grade reagent. In 1953, chemists first used chromatography to separate complex mixtures, a mainstream milestone that reminds you how precise separation can mean the difference between life and Lewis acid burns. Historians still argue whether chromatography revolutionized drug discovery or just kept ambitious professors busy, and as you toe the line between life-saving therapy and illicit empire, you know precision is your best friend and worst enemy. You shuffle past the stainless steel scoop that once measured out 0.01 gram samples for purity checks, now stained with pale memory. You probably won't survive this cook without thinking twice, but survival isn't the goal, it's transcendence, turning sludge into privilege, risk into reward. Jesse would call that twisted calculus, and you almost laugh, your second joke, but the sound dies in your throat when a soft click echoes from the dash. You spin to see the canvas bag from Section 7, its cobalt crystals nestled like a field of midnight flowers. You brush a stray shard into your glove, feeling its cold bite through the nitrile. A fringe rumor whispers that trace amounts of rare earth metals can tweak refractive index to dazzling effect, a gimmick for cooks chasing a mythic sparkle. Historians still debate whether any street legend about atomic spice held merit, and tonight you're here to cook reality, not chase fairy tales. The RV creaks as you shift weight, metal groaning with betrayal, or perhaps relief. You pour heptane into a flask, your hands steady despite the drumbeat in your ribs. That beat echoes Jane's final sob, a reminder that guilt is a catalyst more explosive than butane under pressure. In medieval alchemy, mercury and sulfur symbolized the union of body and soul, a quirky tidbit that feels eerie here. Chemicals as symbols, you're cooking an act of sacrament and sin. You fit the flask under the torch, the blue flicker catching your eye as the solvent warms. Walt's voice, your internal monologue, whispers, "Keep it under 120 degrees Celsius." A mainstream fact surfaces. Steam engine boilers of the 19th century capped at similar thresholds before exploding into catastrophes. Historians still argue whether those boiler explosions spurred modern safety codes or propaganda for industrialists. But here, under this RV roof, your safety codes are instinct and desperation. A bubble pops at the solution's surface, tiny chemical fireworks. You stir with a glass rod, savoring the hiss like a lullaby-turned alarm. You probably won't survive this batch without a stopwatch, but you set your phone's timer for 1 minute, your third joke courting absurdity. If only your mortal time could be so neatly measured. The solution glows straw yellow now, the first hint that crystals will form. You lean forward, tasting solvent's acrid kiss on your tongue like an unwelcome souvenir. Jesse's voice flits through your mind, "It's contaminated." You grimace. His missing money was the least of your impurities, but you press on. Each bubble reminds you that every reaction has byproducts, and not all are desirable. The digital scale on the dash flickers to 1.000 G as you add pseudoephedrine. Precision hums through your veins until a low roar rattles you, the engine's fan motor, or your faint hope of safety. You adjust the heat dial, the flame dancing like a fire demon begging for a breach. You stifle a breath. This is the closest you come to prayer in a world that calls idols chemicals. You drain cooled water from the flask into the bath, the hiss a tender greeting to survival. A fringe entomologist once mused that bugs in the desert dance in circles to ward off predators. Historians still argue whether insect choreography is instinct or art. Right now, as the solution clears, you feel like a bug in a circle, trapped by ambition yet spinning a path forward. You scrape the first jagged shards into a petri dish, each clicking like a taking of vows. The blue sparkles in the dome light, calling your name. You inhale the tang of solvent fumes and victory, tasting regret on your breath. The RV hums its lullaby/warning, sand drifts past the open hatch, and you realize, ghosts of Phoenix Labs past are watching, waiting for you to slip. You pocket a single shard, your talisman, your threat. Jesse's phantom howl echoes. "Bitch!" A callback that flirts with absurdity in this cathedral of makeshift miracles. You exhale, tasting pine resin and adrenaline. You press your back to the RV wall, breathing shallow, ready for dawn's arrival and the reckoning that follows. Section 2. Chemistry on Wheels. You trudge through the RV's narrow corridor, its interior still humming from last night's crucible, and feel every vibration in your bones, like a ticking metronome counting down to confrontation. The kitchenette door rattles as you swing it open, revealing a battleground of mismatched glassware and tangled tubing. You probably won't survive this without recalibrating your sanctuary, but momentum demands forward motion. Today, you repurpose wreckage into armor, assembling your mobile lab like a warship at sea. You haul out the heavy toolbox, once reserved for Hyundai tune-ups, now filled with pressure gauges and spare tubing. Under the harsh dome light, each tool glints with purpose and peril. You glance at the slim, folded blueprint you sketched in the heat of Section 8, a streamlined fume hood, reinforced restraints for flasks, and rerouted ventilation. In 1908, the Model T revolutionized manufacturing with standardized parts, a mainstream fact that hums in your mind. Even makeshift labs thrive on modularity. Historians still argue whether Ford's assembly line democratized mobility or enslaved workers, but tonight, modularity shields you from detection. Jesse's shadow flickers behind the table as he pries loose the overhead vent. You clamp his hand gently, your first joke, because nothing says teamwork like wrestling rusted grates in asbestos dust. He winces but nods, understanding the stakes. Hank Schrader has grown suspicious. Every DEA checkpoint and routine lab inspection could unmask your empire. Their sniffer dogs might detect residual ammonia and solvent, but you'll outwit them with redundancy and disguise. You lay out a series of coffee filters, your makeshift HEPA substitutes, stacked between duct tape coils. A fringe chemist once claimed that vacuum-sealed charcoal pouches doubly filter hydrogen sulfide. Historians still argue whether charcoal belongs in clandestine labs or just camper's gear, but tonight, you hedge every bet. You seal each filter with industrial tape, the ridged patter echoing in the cramped space. At the rear hatch, you mount a compact exhaust fan, salvaged from a busted RV bathroom. You position it to port, rigging a PVC elbow pipe that zigzags toward the RV's undercarriage. A low whir hums as you flick the switch. Air rushes through the labyrinth, carrying chemical whispers far from earshot. A mainstream fact: in the 1970s, home ventilation systems adopted microfilters to curb radon. Historians still debate their efficacy, but you feel this draft could spare you one snooping cop. Next, you reinforce the hot plate station. You clamp a steel bracket, liberated from a Tucson stash crate, across the cinder block risers, securing a secondary hot plate on a swivel hinge. Now you can pivot between two burners, doubling throughput or isolating one runaway reaction. Jesse tightens the bolt, his hoodie smeared with solvent like a proud badge. Your second joke: if this lab turns into a rotating restaurant, you'll finally drown out Hank's car alarms. You recall the hiss of leaking vapor from Section 8, that corroded seam nearly incinerated you. Now, you sheath every joint in Teflon tape, layering until the valves squeak against friction. In 1961, NASA sealed Mercury capsules with similar compounds, mainstream fact, but historians still argue whether early space race tech belonged in chemical rebels' hands. Tonight, you hope it keeps Gatorade fumes, not hydrofluoric acid, in check. Above the cook station, you install a rudimentary sensor, a borrowed multi-gas detector salvaged from Jesse's sketchy contact. You mount it on a hook made from bent coat hanger, pointing the probe at your primary flask. It chirps softly, ready to shriek at ammonia or VOC spikes. The display blinks 0.00, your faint reassurance that survival and chemistry can coexist in a single gadget. Jesse fetches the final piece, a collapsible awning hack-rigged from a tattered tarp. You secure it outside the RV's passenger door, fashioning a shaded airlock that smooths inlet air and shields prying eyes. A fringe urban survivalist once praised tarp-based blinds for stealth camping. Historians still debate if tarp tech saved lives or spread leptospirosis, but tonight, it's your sentinel against neighborhood watch. Inside, you organize your reagents on magnetic strips affixed to the walls: pseudoephedrine, methylamine, heptane, each labeled in your own precise hand. The whiteboard you rescued from Section 1 now charts colorful reaction pathways, annotated with temperature setpoints and yield targets. You probably won't survive this cook without clarity, and clarity starts with order. You step back, arms crossed, surveying your handiwork. The RV lab stands rearmed, improved ventilation, dual burners, hazard alarms, and shielded inlet. You stifle your third joke about calling it Lab 2.0 as if it were the next iPhone, but the punchline stings. You're not marketing gadgets, you're manufacturing illicit survival. Downstairs, Jesse rigs a backup power source, a motorcycle battery hooked to an inverter. The lights flicker as he tests the circuit, then holds steady. You smile. Electricity, like chemistry, demands redundancy. In 1913, the first electric grid proved unstable until engineers embraced failsafes. Historians still argue whether Nikola Tesla or Edison deserved credit, but tonight you channel both inventors' stubborn ingenuity. As dawn's first light seeps through dust streaks, you both step outside, chest heaving, CIA's tattered logo on the side. You feel the desert chill brush sweat from your skin, a sensory counterpoint to the RV's smoldering heart. Here in the makeshift frontier, you've rebuilt not just glassware, but hope. You slide into the driver's seat as Jesse locks the hatch. The RV hums its readiness. Hank's suspicions linger beyond that horizon, but for now, you've fortified your fortress on wheels. The next cook may still test your limits, but at least you've stacked the deck. Section 3. Skyler's suspicion rises. You glide into the living room like a shadow at dusk, the soft hum of the thermostat doing its best to mask your racing heartbeat. Skyler stands by the window, the sheer curtain fluttering as you cross the threshold, your domestic entry a performance under her watchful gaze. You probably won't survive this hidden scrutiny without a controlled poker face, but tonight demands every ounce of practiced composure. In 1954, television broadcasts showed smiling families gathered round perfect meals, a mainstream fact that underlines just how fake normal can feel. Historians still argue whether TV's portrayal of the nuclear family empowered homemakers or set impossible ideals, and you sense both forces squeezing your ribs as you hover near the coffee table. You let your fingers brush the framed photo of Walter Jr. on the end table. His braces glint in the lamp's glow, just long enough to remember the stakes. The aroma of chamomile tea drifts from Skyler's mug, a sensory detail bright against the undercurrent of ammonia that clings to your hands. You stifle your first joke, if only a whiff of meth could cure insomnia, instead of causing it, but the words die on your tongue when Skyler turns, suspicion sharpening her eyes like a scalpel. Your jacket collar trembles with flecks of cobalt residue, proof that crystalline footprints don't wash away in domestic sinks. Skyler steps forward, voice low but edged. "Where were you today?" she asks, and the question lands like a brass knuckle. Your mind whirls, mixing alibi chemicals faster than any flask, grading lab reports, parent-teacher meeting, fixing a broken projector. In 1963, schools began installing slide projectors for multimedia lessons, a fringe fact you tuck away. If a request for a projector story holds up, she won't care why it's really broken. Historians still debate whether early ed tech eased learning or distracted students, but right now, that trivia might save your skin. You clear your throat, letting your practiced calm slip through. "I spent the morning at the school," you say, each syllable coated in casual warmth. Stoichiometry quiz corrections, students aced molar ratios, by the way. You flash a small smile. The corner of Skyler's lips twitches, caught between concern and a habitual doubt that won't fully disappear. You absorb the moment, suburban bliss versus chemical empire, two worlds colliding in the glow of a table lamp. Skyler crosses her arms, nostrils flaring as she considers you. You taste lint and tea on your tongue, a sensory hitch that anchors you in this impromptu interrogation. Your second joke bubbles up, comparing her gaze to a fuming Bunsen burner, but you swallow it, knowing humor here is a flame that could ignite your ruin. Instead, you add a fringe detail. "The school bought new slide projectors, but they jam whenever I need them most." You hold your breath, watching her reaction. Her eyes narrow, recalling the old art room projector that screeched in Section 1, callbacks sparkling like a dropped fuse. She exhales a shaky breath and pulls her sleeves down, softening. "I'm glad you're back," she murmurs, voice coated in relief and caution. That small concession feels like crossing a tightrope without rope. You probably won't survive this charade forever, but tonight you gain inches. Jesse's heavy footsteps echo from the hallway as he emerges, hoodie pulled low, expression unreadable. He nods at Skyler, an informal ceasefire, then retreats to the kitchen, carrying a bowl of popcorn as if he's joining a movie night. Popcorn crackles under the electric kettle's rumble, sensory detail that feels out of place amid chemical threats. You let the moment stretch. Family ritual versus clandestine lab, a fragile détente hanging by residue-stained threads. Skyler settles into the armchair, tea in hand, and you slide onto the couch beside her, careful to leave an inch of daylight between you. The upholstery's vinyl surface is cool against your trousers, and you taste the faint scent of detergent, reminding you that home is only as clean as the dirt you hide. A mainstream fact flickers. Vinyl upholstery became popular in the 1950s to mask messes, a practical choice for families but a reminder for you that surface comfort can conceal deep stains. Historians still argue whether form or function drove mid-century design, but here, style and subterfuge intertwine on this couch. You shift, absently tracing your thumb over the seam of a cushion, and Skyler's gaze follows the movement. You seize the moment, weaving your third joke. "Popcorn's only slightly less combustible than my RV cook," you quip softly. She huffs a brief laugh, more nervous than amused, and you feel a lift in the room's tension. It's small, paper-thin, but enough to let you breathe. On the coffee table lies a stack of flyers: school fundraiser, bake sale, parent volunteers needed. You glance at them, remembering how chemistry demos at the fair turned volatile in Section 2. You push them aside, masking a grimace as Skyler perks up about fundraising. "Sure," you say, "I'll help set up the science booth." She beams, relief blooming across her features. For one glorious moment, you're a good dad, a supportive spouse, roles you've played so well you almost believe them. Jesse returns, dropping the popcorn and handing you a soda. His eyes flick to your collar, then the couch's margin, where the bag from Section 7 might be hiding under layers. You sip, the fizz tickling your throat, and let the cinnamon-sweet cola distract you. Skyler offers to refill her tea. You watch her walk away, thinking, normalcy is the deadliest disguise. You settle back, popcorn kernels popping in the background tune of suburban quiet. The ceiling fan hums, stirring warm air across your face. You taste metal and ambition lingering beneath the popcorn's butter, sensory detail that clings to your conscience. You remind yourself, every lull in domesticity risks a crash, every soft laugh can shatter. Historians still argue whether compartmentalization preserves sanity or corrodes the soul, and tonight you watch that theory play out under lamplight. Skyler's humming fades as she steps into the kitchen, and you gulp the last of your soda. In the silence, you feel the couch cushion's indentation, the popcorn bowl's hollow dry snap, and the weight of blue crystal secrets tucked away in the other room. You probably won't survive this peaceful interlude unbroken, but for now, the family fault lines remain dull fractures, hidden beneath smiles and mashed potatoes. Your phone buzzes, Jesse's text, "Ready," and you slip it into your pocket. Skyler emerges, asking about volunteers, and you nod, buttoning your jacket with deliberate calm. You rise, planting a peck on her cheek. She closes her eyes, trusting you for a breath. As you step toward the hallway, you pause. Home's warm glow meets desert's barren truth at this threshold. You push through the doorway, the living room's hush trailing behind you. The slam of the back door echoes like a gavel, judgment delivered. Outside, the night air tastes of jasmine and dirt, a reminder that life's comfort is only as secure as your secrets remain buried. You probably won't survive this without another alibi, but the show goes on, and you choose your lines carefully. Section 4. Jesse's descent deepens. You slip out of the living room's warm glow and trudge across the hallway's threadbare carpet, the hush swallowing your footsteps like sand in a storm. Jesse Pinkman's absence from the couch feels like a missing tooth, jarring and raw. You probably won't survive this night without confronting his ghosts, but the rooftop calls you both to reckon with guilt. You climb the rickety ladder, each rung creaking under your weight, until you break through onto the porch roof. Moonlight pools around you, silver and cold, and Jesse perches at the edge, legs dangling like loose wires. The air tastes of juniper and regret, a sensory echo of your first acid pit in Section 2. You pad forward until you sit beside him, toes brushing the gravel. His hoodie hangs limp, the red fabric dulled by dust, once a banner of teenage swagger, now a ragged flag of broken promises. In 1955, the beat poets drifted through smoky jazz clubs looking for meaning, a mainstream fact that mirrors Jesse's own search amid wreckage and loss. Historians still argue whether those wanderings sparked revolution or romantic folly, and tonight, you wonder if Jesse's spiral is any less poetic. He doesn't look at you, his gaze fixed on the horizon where chimneys in town glimmer like distant stars. You clear your throat, your first joke, because if guilt had Yelp reviews, this rooftop would earn eerie ambience, 0 stars. He snorts without humor, and you feel the tension knot your shoulders. Jesse, you say softly, voice almost lost beneath cricket's symphony. He finally turns, eyes red-rimmed, exhaustion carved into his face. His breath catches like a frayed wire sparking in the night. "I'm done, man," he whispers. The words hang between you like a rusted gate. A mainstream fact, during Prohibition, guilt drove many moonshiners to turn informant, betraying friends for redemption or survival. Historians still argue whether those betrayals were pragmatism or cowardice, and in Jesse's tremor-filled voice you hear both. You sit beside him, legs dangling. Each shard in your pocket feels like a debt you can't repay. You survived Tuco's palm nail test, you remind him, a callback to Section 7. He lets out a brittle laugh, your second joke, a sound part sob, part snarl. "Doesn't feel like survival," he mutters, voice tight as a noose. The porch's edge is sharp beneath your palms. Below, the RV's engine hum recalls Section 8's reactor roar, but here it's replaced by nocturnal hush. A fringe entomologist once claimed insect choruses mirror heartbeats. Historians still debate whether that's metaphor or fact, but your pulse drums in time with the crickets. Jesse pulls a crumpled photo from his pocket, a younger him at a science fair, ribbon pinned proud on his jacket. You recall that ribbon from Section 3, a baking soda volcano trophy turned bitter token. He swipes at a tear. You taste the night air, pine and regret, as he murmurs, "I lost it all." You rest a hand on his shoulder, steady but light. "You still have us," you say, "Walt, this fragile alliance." He shakes his head. "I killed Combo. I let Jane die." A mainstream addiction study notes overdose deaths surged 45% among meth users in the early 2000s, a grim statistic swinging above you. Historians still argue whether policy failures or personal choices bear more blame, and you see both in Jesse's haunted eyes. He pushes away from the roof and stumbles down the ladder. You catch him at the last rung. "Where are you going?" you ask. He grunts, vanishing into the RV's belly. Inside, he lunges at the stash box, rifling through vials with shaking fingers. "I need something," he mutters. You step in, heart pounding. The vials hold ghosts of past sins. "Jesse, no," you say, firm but gentle. He jerks away, eyes glassy. "I'm not your project. I'm not Heisenberg's sidekick." Walt's distant call, "Pinkman," snaps him upright. He shoves past you and yanks the canvas bag onto the table, crystals clattering like fallen promises. "I can cook on my own," he snarls, voice raw. You step forward. "This isn't the answer," you insist. He laughs, a brittle, unforgiving sound. "Yeah. Then what is?" He sweeps crystals off the table, shards tumble and cut into his gloves, sensory detail drawing blood. He winces. You taste copper on your tongue. The RV's vent rattles like a distant storm. You lock eyes with Jesse, rage and sorrow tangled there. "You ever tried talking to someone?" you suggest. "Professional, I mean." Historians still debate rooftop therapy's efficacy, but a couch is better than concrete. He stares at you, wavering. He picks a shard, presses it to his tongue, call back to Section 7, then flicks it away, skipping like stones. "Not tonight," he whispers. You nod, fighting tears for both of you. "Tomorrow, then." You help him stash crystals. The zipper squeaks like a confession. He collapses on the bunk. You settle opposite. Silence holds you. Remember why we started? You ask. To matter. He lifts his head, eyes red. Maybe I don't care anymore. You taste guilt, you and him both. A mainstream fact. Purpose-driven labor reduces depressive symptoms by up to 30%. Historians still argue whether purpose precedes well-being or vice versa. You cling to the thought. Jesse closes his eyes. Tell Walt I'm okay, he mumbles. You nod. You rise and move to the driver's seat. Get some rest. Tomorrow, we talk. He nods. You kill the lights. Soft darkness swallows you. The moon's glow washes the desert outside. You climb down and close the door. On the porch roof, Jesse's silhouette fades, a lone figure perched between redemption and ruin. You steady your breath. Pine, dust, dread, ready for dawn's reckoning. Section 5. Lab Upgrades and Mishaps. You ease back into the RV's lab bay as the sun crests the horizon, its pale light slicing through dust-streaked windows like a cold blade. The hot plates sit idle, their black surfaces stained with yesterday's glory and fiasco both. You probably won't survive this next cook without meticulous upgrades, but necessity is your savage architect. In 1974, the first programmable logic controllers revolutionized factory automation, a mainstream fact that sparks your own longing for mechanized precision in this ramshackle rig. Historians still argue whether automation freed workers or eroded craft, and here, automation might spare you from manual disaster. You haul open the toolbox you bolted under the sink and extract a small digital multimeter, your retrofit sensor for electric continuity. Under the sputter of the dome light, you probe the hot plate wiring, testing for loose connections that could trigger a flameout or, worse, an arc flash. A fringe electrician forum once swore a paperclip could bridge faulty terminals in a pinch. Don't test that theory if you value eyebrows. U-clip test leads to live wires. Beep. Solid continuity. First upgrade. Guaranteed power. Jesse watches, eyebrows knit, silently applauding your insistence on safety in this temple of risk. Next, you address the cramped vent hood. Last cook's solvent fumes nearly choked the fan's motor. You can't repeat that near miss. You slide under the hood's flange and free a tangle of duct tape, glass shards, and desert grit. You replace the cruddy coffee filter HEPA with a high-grade furnace filter you scavenged from a closure sale. The pleats stand tall, ready to gulp fumes. You clamp it with hose clamps. No more loose edges. In 1980, Greenpeace popularized safer air filtration for pollution control, a mainstream echo here. Filtered air might save lungs or at least hide your stench from prying noses. Historians still debate whether grassroots activism shaped those standards or if industry grudgingly complied, but tonight you slip compliance into everyday survival. Jesse leans a battered wrench against the counter, impatience coiled in his posture. You glance at him, your second joke. If impatience were a solvent, it'd dissolve your nerve. He sniffs the new filter, eyebrows raised. Feels legit, he concedes. You nod and turn to the reagent shelves, each bottle precarious on narrow brackets. A sudden RV bump could send methylamine sailing across the floor. Unacceptable. You pull a length of elastic cord from your tool stash, one of those camouflage bungee loops campers use, and rig a crossweb of elastic over each shelf. Now each bottle sits cradled, held taut as a rally flag. A fringe survivalist once praised paracord for field improvisation. Historians still argue whether paracord was a military boon or a pretext for crafting microforts, but this elastic fortress feels like security. Your gaze settles on the reactor's pressure gauge, a vital instrument last patched with Teflon tape. The needle gapes at 0 psi, but the bezel's cracked, and condensation clouds the glass. You unscrew the bezel and peel away the cracked face. Beneath lies a delicate diaphragm that you carefully dust with an old toothbrush. You polish the glass with a rag soaked in isopropyl. No scratches now. You reassemble the gauge, torque the bezel, and test with a hand pump. The needle quivers smoothly. Peak upgrade, a reliable eye on pressure. Without it, you're blind to catastrophe. Beneath the table, you tap the drawer until a slide panel pops open. Your hidden ammo stash of spare flanges and O-rings. You extract a polytetrafluoroethylene gasket rated for 150 psi, swapping out the corroded PVC coupling from Section 8. The new gasket fits snug, sealing the reactor's seam like a belt around a wound. A mainstream fact: modern industrial gaskets seal pipelines under 1000 psi. Your half-inch patch isn't up to that scale, but it's a miracle compared to duct tape's gamble. Historians still argue whether wartime scarcity spurred polymer innovation or vice versa, and tonight that polymer might keep your skin intact. Jesse slips a flask from the cupboard, his first attempt at adapting chilled acetone baths. He flicks on a submersible aquarium pump, fashioning an ice water recirculation system. The coolant buzzes as it flows through PVC coils, chilling a second reaction chamber. You hoist an aluminum bucket of ice water over the vent hole, linking it to the coils. Now you have dual cooling, reactor jacket and solvent cooler. This Frankenstein's larder hums with life. Your third joke flitters to lips, comparing the tableau to a portable Snow Queen's lair, but you swallow it when Jesse shivers. The early morning chill isn't comfort, it's the breath of risk. You switch on the overhead fan, the one saved from disaster last batch, and watch dust motes dive like fish in a current. Clean air, sealed valves, chilled baths, each upgrade is a stitch in the patchwork haul. You step back, surveying the lab's new silhouette: symmetrical burners, fortified vent, reliable gauge, tethered reagents, chilling coils. It's not space age, but it's your armor against entropy and enforcement. You probably won't survive this season without more upgrades, but this iteration might just tip odds. You snap the multimeter leads off the wires and clip the tool securely. Jesse leans in, scanning the setup. "Ready?" he rasps, voice tight. You nod, heart steadying. "Let's cook." The RV creaks its ascent, engine idling like a loyal beast. Outside, the desert sun lifts, promising both sunrise and scrutiny. Section 6, Hank's heel turns. You slip out of the RV into the dusky twilight, heart hammering like a runaway Bunsen burner, and make your way toward Hank Schrader's cruiser, idling under a flickering streetlight. You probably won't survive this without nerves of steel, but tonight you need to play both chemist and chameleon. In 2001, the first Metal Gear Solid game popularized stealth mechanics in digital espionage, a mainstream fact that sparks a smirk as you recall your own sneak missions around DEA checkpoints. Historians still argue whether gaming primed a generation for covert ops or merely wasted hours, but right now you count on both practice and distraction. You tuck your lab coat, style jacket over the canvas bag, concealing its cobalt secrets. Your footsteps crunch on gravel, every stray pebble threatens to give you away. You pause beside the cruiser's front bumper, watching Hank adjust his sunglasses in the mirror. He's unaware of your chemical empire humming just yards away. A fringe criminologist once posited that radar detectors can be foiled by vacuum-sealed envelopes. Don't expect your lab's hum to seal you from Hank's instincts, though. You slip to the driver's side and hover near the door, your palms sweaty against the cool metal. You stifle your first joke. If only you could hand Hank an alibi like a shooting script. Yeah, he was grading stoichiometry at 8 p.m. But you resist the quip. Instead, you lean in, peering through tinted glass at Hank's silhouette. He pats down his vest, standard DEA ritual, then steps out, scanning the shadows. "Schrader," you murmur under your breath, slipping back into the RV's side hatch. Inside, you seal the door quietly and head straight for the monitor you rigged to the exterior camera. The grainy footage shows Hank's boots crunching the dirt. You tap the screen, activate decoy siren. A low beep answers, and a patched-together speaker under the back axle crackles, then screeches like a dying banshee. Hank whirls, hand on holster. You bite your lip, your second joke. If Hank's hearing is as acute as rumor, he'll think DEA HQ collapsed. The siren sputters, then cuts off. He frowns, leaning toward the sound. You hold your breath. A mainstream fact flickers. Early spy satellites used decoy signals to mislead radar, and now you're pieced together rig burrows that cunning. Historians still argue whether such countermeasures ever truly fooled adversaries or fueled arms races, but tonight, you gamble on deception. Hank stalks back to his truck, eyes narrowing. You stifle a cheer. This is your stealth victory, minuscule but vital. You shut down the monitor, retracing your steps toward the cook station. The reactor's gentle pulse has you on edge. If Hank spots your lights, alarms will bleed through your chemical sanctuary. You reach the hot plates and run a gloved hand over the steel bracket, securing your nerve. You probably won't survive this without your usual lab coat armor, but tonight you're armor enough. You glance at Jesse's workstation. He's primed the second burner, reagents lined like watchful sentinels. The flickering glow reminds you of the reactor's early hiss in Section 8, that near explosion that taught you respect for fire. You adjust the reactor's coolant valve, listening for the hiss to settle into a steady breath. A fringe engineer once suggested humming an octave to stabilize pulse frequencies in pumps. Don't try tuning your reactor like an organ pipe, though. You close your eyes and hum a low note anyway, half in jest, half in need of rhythm. The coolant's whisper responds with calm. Suddenly, Hank's headlights sweep across the RV's side. You freeze, every muscle clenched. The headlights drift past, then settle back on the lab. Panic claws at your chest. 3 seconds too long and you're discovered. You press the reactor's control panel, dimming the interior lights to their lowest glow. The RV interior is swallowed by shadow. Hank steps forward, flashlight beams slicing through your tinted window. You press your back to the wall and force your breathing to shallow sips. You probably won't survive this close call without a miracle or a hidden exit. You slip to the tiny window above the cook station and peek. Hank's flashlight flitters across the side door. You try to appear asleep, lab coat rumpled, goggles askew, like a night watchman nodding off. Your first joke in minutes flitters to your mind. If fake snoring could be patented, you'd be a billionaire. But you force silence. Hank shoves open the side door, metal screech echoing like a cracked siren. Inside, he strides toward your sagging silhouette. Each step crunches like gravel under a boot. You roll aside, heart in your throat, reveling in friction against the bench. Hank's beam sweeps over empty flasks, lined up coffee filters, and the fume hood rig. He stops at the reactor's jacket, eyeing the reinforced seam. You hold still. He reaches out, fingers brushing PTFE tape, and you smack the side panel shut. Medic! That thing's rusting through. Hank's voice cracks a joke that's somehow comforting. You flop upright. Yeah, dry climate, you rasp, voice husky. Airborne particles, you know. You stifle your second joke, ironically understating your death trap. Hank snorts. You chemists and your particles, he says fondly. He glances at your digital gauge, then at you. You need a hand with that? You nod, relief flooding your gut. Sure might. You shift, tapping a pipe joint. Hank produces a small oil can, standard issue, and oozes lubricant onto the seam. The hiss of breeze through the vent dims further. You probably won't survive this handshake without acknowledging luck, but you mute your gratitude. Hank steps back. Keep your rig tight, he says. Got a call about solvent fumes down at the car wash. He chuckles, turning to leave. You stifle your third joke. Solvent fumes at car washes sounds like a startup pitch. He climbs into his truck and drives off, lights receding into desert black. You exhale, tasting pine resin and terror. Your nerves frayed as tubing. You lean against the reactor, hands shaking slightly as you press resume on your cook. The night's tension wraps around you like a second skin, sharp, unyielding. You glance at Jesse. He meets your eyes, nods, and returns to his pipette. You clap him on the shoulder, a silent salute. You probably won't survive this cook unscathed, but you just outwitted the DEA. Tonight, chemistry and cunning have forged temporary peace. You reset the lab lights to full and step back behind your burners. The reactor hums its condolences. Outside, the desert air sighs through the vents, ready to carry your secrets into oblivion. You steel yourself, fingertips tingling. Time to cook. Section 7. Family Fragments Exposed. You slip through the RV's side door, the hum of the reactor softening as you leave the lab's womb for the domestic arena. The front door of your suburban home clicks shut behind you, and you feel the thermostat's cool kiss replace the furnace heat of chemical ambition. You probably won't survive this dinner without a tight grip on your nerves, but tonight you must wear normal like body armor. In 1955, TV dinner sales surged after Coca-Cola sponsored primetime meals, a mainstream fact that reminds you how media can package perfection, something you're desperately faking by the muted hum of your living room light. Historians still argue whether those frozen trays strengthened family bonds or promoted convenience over connection, and tonight your own convenience dinner teeters on that same razor's edge. Skyler is already at the table, her back ramrod straight, stirring gravy with polite precision. Walt Jr. sits opposite, textbook open but untouched, eyes flicking between his plate and the hallway. You slide into your seat, fingers brushing the edge of the Formica tabletop, its plastic sheen a sensory callback to Section 3's couch vinyl. The smell of meatloaf drifts upward, warm, sweet, unthreatening, yet your hands still carry the faint ammonia tang, like a ghost no amount of gravy can exorcise. Jesse leans against the wall behind you, arms crossed, hoodie smudged with yesterday's solvents. He glances at your collar, a tiny fleck of blue crystal sparks under the lamp's glow. You clear your throat, your first joke, because nothing says dinner conversation like the chemicals clinging to your lapels. Skyler doesn't miss the glance, her lips twitch but remain sealed. You taste mashed potato on your tongue, a blandness you once found comforting now biting at your conscience. Skyler sets the first dish down with a ceramic thud. "Long day?" she asks, voice measured. You nod, leaning into the question like it's a Bunsen burner waiting to erupt. "Yeah," you say, tasting the word's weight. Field trip logistics. You jab your fork into meatloaf, call back to Section 4's fundraising gag, and feel the sliced carrots recoil under your blade. A fringe psychologist once argued that slicing soft foods can mirror emotional cleavage. Historians still debate whether that metaphor holds for trauma, and tonight every knife flick feels like carving your own fault lines. Walt Jr. chips in, bright face illuminated by the screen of his phone. "Mr. White, when's the next chemistry demo?" His innocent demand lands like a dropped mortar shell. You laugh, your second joke. "Soon, bud. You promise," though your mind roars of midnight reactors and runaway solvents. Skyler's eyes flick to your phone's pocket. She's seen its glow light up with lab schedules. You tuck your hand under the table, clasping the device like contraband. Skyler's fork freezes halfway to her mouth. "Just grading lab reports," she presses, gaze sharp as a scalpel. You breathe, tasting the mash's starch on your teeth. The volume on the TV drone pulses through the floorboards. Canned laughter from a sitcom about perfect families echoes hollowly. You probably won't survive this cross-examination without a lifeline. You toss in a fringe trivia. The cafeteria's new slide projector jammed again today. It's absurd, but callback to Section 2's projector fiasco softens her suspicion just enough. Her shoulders slump a fraction. Traffic was bad, she concedes, voice gentler. You smile, a practiced curve that feels like plastic. A mainstream fact flashes. In 1978, U.S. traffic congestion reached record highs, pushing commuters into suburban captivity. Historians still argue whether highways liberated or imprisoned middle-class America. Here, traffic is your alibi, even as your real commute runs between chemistry and carnage. Jesse watches from the hallway, jaw clenched. He palms a soda can, condensation rolling down his hoodie. You catch his eye, your silent signal. Don't slip. He sips, the fizz crackling like static in the quiet room. You taste cola on your tongue, sweet, banal, a sensory shard of normal. It almost soothes. Skyler relaxes enough to mention Walt Jr.'s braces adjustment. You weigh in on orthodontic schedules, a tangential joke brewing. Better dial me out of your braces prep, my schedule's unstable. You let the quip land, and Walt Jr. chuckles, the first genuine smile of the night. You taste relief, tempered by the aftertaste of bleach. Skyler's gaze softens. She reaches across the table to touch your hand. The skin-to-skin contact sends a flicker of warmth through your chest. You probably won't survive this without letting her in, but vulnerability here feels like disarming in no man's land. You hold her hand a beat too long before sliding it back. The TV flickers to a weather report. Clear skies and rising temperatures for tomorrow. You inhale, tasting horizon and dread. Outside the window, desert moonlight glimmers on the stucco. A fringe meteorologist once claimed desert nights refract starlight weirdly. Historians still debate whether that spurred early astronomy, but you feel the cosmos watching your facade. Dinner winds down. Skyler clears plates as you fold napkins. You cough, a tactical move, then offer to help. You lift the dish rack's flimsy load into the sink, the clinks of porcelain echoing like lab glassware. Jesse appears, sliding a rag across the counter with his hoodie sleeve. The fabric smears green dish soap suds like chemical paste. Skyler thanks you, voice soft. You probably won't survive this thank you without guilt, but you nod. Your palms brush under the faucet's water. Cold rush, sensory shock that washes away only surface grime. You stare at your hands, imagining acid stains beneath. A mainstream fact: water's surface tension can't wash away dissolved contaminants. Historians still argue whether purity is ever truly achieved, and you suspect tonight's cleanse is only an illusion. You turn to Jesse, gesturing at the flyers for the school fundraiser. I'll set up that chemistry demo, you say, voice firm. Skyler brightens, her relief palpable. You taste chamomile again, a lullaby for lies. As Skyler hums in the kitchen, you and Jesse head for the front door. The living room lamp casts long shadows behind you, skeleton silhouettes of truths half buried. You flick off the switch, the darkness swallowing your exit in a single gulp. Outside, the night air is cooler, scented with sage and secrets. You lock the door, and Skyler's silhouette stands behind the curtain, watching. You feel her heartbeat through the glass, uneasy, hopeful. You probably won't survive this domestic theater long term, but tonight you've held your lines. Jesse nudges you. You hand him the canvas bag from Section 7, its crystals safe beneath your jacket. He grips it, nodding. You draw a steadying breath, oxygen tinged with pine and promise. You step into the darkness, the porch light switching off behind you. Family fragments may crack under pressure, but here, in the hush between walls, you've patched one more fissure. The desert waits beyond the yard, but for now, you have reprieve. Section 8, Flight to Tucson. You slip into the RV's cramped lab area as Dawn's pale fingers brush the desert floor, heat radiating from the hot plates like a furnace near its final embers. You probably won't survive this cook without nerves forged in steel, but necessity sharpens focus sharper than any glass rod. In 1911, Marie Curie's pioneering radium purification showed that painstaking precision under pressure could yield miracles and lethal mistakes. Historians still argue whether Curie's methods accelerated industry at safety's expense, and tonight you teeter on that same blade. Your reactor's pressure gauge hovers at 14 psi, just under the 15 psi threshold that risks vessel rupture. You lace up heavy gloves and slide a busted welding mask from Jesse's workbench onto your forehead. Cracked visor, zero protection, maximum intimidation. You stifle your first joke. If that mask could talk, it'd beg for retirement, but survival demands grim resolve. You rummage through a ziplock of silica gel packets, hunting one unpunctured to wedge between the reactor's corroded bolts. A fringe synthesis blog once claimed that silica can fortify reaction chambers against microfractures. Don't trust apocalypse prepper math, though. You tap the bolt heads with a wrench, metal tolling like a funeral bell, hoping your improvised gasket delivers one more minute of safety. Jesse kneels at the coolant reservoir, his hoodie smeared with yesterday's solvents. "Flow's spotty," he warns, voice low. You crank the valve, antifreeze hisses into the jacket, mist curling like ghostly fingers. A mainstream fact surfaces. 1960s petrochemical plants faced 50 documented runaway reactions before new regulations. Historians still debate whether those disasters prompted real safety or just better PR. You pray the new filter and bungee-tied hoses outdo corporate spin. Your second joke drifts behind your teeth. If this turns into a fireworks show, at least I'll go out in color. But you swallow it when a sudden groan makes you freeze. The reactor seems whistle under stress. The needle quivers at 14.5 psi. You grip a spanner, fist whitening, ready to bleed off pressure if you must. Suddenly, Jesse's torch sputters, flame dancing erratically beneath the first flask. A spark lands on a rag, sensory detail that sears nerves. "Watch it," you hiss, yanking the rag away. That rag once soaked up your tears after Tuco's hammer test. Now it flounces loose, ready to ignite. A fringe anecdote claims a single spark in mixed solvents can clear a lab block. Historians still argue if that's cautionary myth or true hazard. You jab at the dial to dial down butane, cursing when the flame flares bright then sputters out. The reactor's belly glows incandescent for an agonizing heartbeat before fading. Your pulse sinks with the gauge's descent, 14 psi, 13.5 psi. You exhale, tasting copper on your tongue. Walt's low voice, your internal metronome, cuts through the hiss. Increase coolant. You nod, flipping a switch to divert extra flow through the jacket. Steam billows as hot solvent meets ice water torrent. You feel the cool bite on your glove, an intimate reminder that control is chemical and mechanical. The reactor hums a steadier note, the mixture churning like a shaken cocktail. You lean in, inhaling solvent's acrid tang, savoring the chemistry's promise of redemption. A fringe alchemist once suggested humming a single note to stave off resonance catastrophes. Historians still debate sonic interventions, but you hum a low A anyway, half in jest, half in hope. Crystals begin to precipitate, jagged shards ghosting against the glass. You pinch one between gloved fingers and tap it on a watch glass, a high-pitched ring, like wind chimes in an acid-fumed cathedral. That's your third joke. If meth played music, it'd be a death metal riff. Jesse watches through the viewing port as crystals coalesce, then swaps in a second hot plate to dry them. You catch a stray grain on the bench, sensory detail that chills you more than the coolant. Desert dust in your product is like sand in your sleep, ruinous. You flick it away, careful not to disturb the crystal cluster. Your eyes flick to the pressure gauge, steady at 12 psi, margin reclaimed. You clamp a final bolt on the reactor top, sealing your makeshift crucible. A mainstream fact: in early candlemaking, vacuum desiccators cured tallow for clear flames. Historians still argue whether kerosene doomed tallow or simply replaced it. Tonight, your vacuum dries purity like a chemist's lamp. You release the pressure fully and unbolt the reactor head. Steam unfurls like a specter escaping a tomb. You scoop the deep blue crystals into a porcelain bowl, sensory detail shining against the bowl's white curve, and run your finger across the rim, smooth as fine crystal glass. Walt's voice softens, 99.6%. Relief soothes your spine. Jesse bags the shards in a padded case labeled Tucson, Final. He hefts the case with a grunt, payment owed and debts settled. You seal the case, each click echoing like a verdict. The RV's engine idles in the background, a lullaby/threat. You pocket the spectrometer, trophy and liability, alongside the cooling coils pump. The lab's hum fades to stillness as dawn steals through vents, painting dust motes in gold. You step outside, inhaling sagebrush and sweat-scented triumph. The desert air tastes like consequence and possibility. The RV lab's door clicks shut, sealing your crucible. You probably won't survive this unscathed, but you did survive. Jesse slides into the driver's seat, and you settle beside him, crystals stashed beneath your jacket. The road ahead shimmers with promise and peril. You steel your resolve. Chemistry under pressure yields both salvation and ruin. Section 9, Borderland Betrayals. You drive the RV down a dust-streaked access road toward the border's jagged horizon, headlights slicing through mesquite shadows like laser beams. You probably won't survive this without nerves of iron, but tonight demands more than chemistry. It requires cunning diplomacy under fire. In 1929, the U.S. established the first federal border patrol to stem illegal crossings, a mainstream fact that underscores these lines: even your clandestine empire must bow to geography. Historians still argue whether border fences secure nations or fracture humanity, and here you navigate both metal and mistrust. Jesse slouches beside you in the passenger seat, arms crossed, hoodie damp with nervous sweat. He sucks in a quivering breath as you guide the RV onto cracked concrete, the sketchy lair tucked behind rusted warehouses and chain-link fences topped with barbed wire. You recall Section 8's ice-water hum, but tonight the air tastes of diesel, tension, and something more acrid, fear's signature scent. You kill the engine, and the world hushes. The night's stillness presses in, broken only by distant hum of border traffic. A fringe urban explorer once claimed ghost towns sprout around closed checkpoints. Don't count on phantoms to guide you, though. You reach for the canvas bag, fingertips grazing cobalt shards like frozen lightning bolts, your leverage and lifeline. Outside, you and Jesse slip out, footsteps crunching over gravel. You keep your voice low. Stick to the plan. Your first joke flits to your mind: welcome to Westworld, Meth Frontier Edition. But you bite it back. Humor here could spark a shootout. Ahead, two figures loom in the half-light, a pair of cartel operatives with dusty sombreros and leather duster coats, lean and watchful as vultures. One fingers a Winchester-style rifle, the other cracks a beer with a spatter of suds. You smell tequila on their breath, a sensory detail more unsettling than the rifle's cold steel. In 1950s border towns, rotating drum beats from cantina mariachis once masked gunfire. Historians still debate whether music soothed violence or egged it on. Tonight, you're wary of both. You step forward, canvas bag held at chest level. The larger man squints, his rifle barrel gleaming under a lone floodlight. "You Heisenberg," he drawls in accented English. You force a grin, your second joke, because nothing deflates danger like self-deprecating humor. Instead, you nod, voice calm. "Name's White. And yes, I have exactly what you ordered." The second man sneers, motioning you closer. You advance, the ground sticky under your boots. In 1931, Prohibition gave rise to bootlegger drop-offs along the Canadian border, a mainstream echo of tonight's exchange. Historians still argue whether geography or greed fueled those speakeasy supply lines, but both forces pulse here. You place the bag on a battered oil drum, and the men inch forward. The larger one tears the ziplock open, blue crystals spilling like midnight hail. He sniffs, then crushes a shard between his boots, powder grinding like coarse sand. A second later, he picks a fresh fragment and underhand tosses it into a spoon, tilting it toward his mouth. You hold your breath. A hush falls, punctuated by that soft metallic ring, zircon-like purity. He nods slowly, eyes glittering. "1.00", he murmurs, 100%. You probably won't survive this without a victory lap, but you swallow triumph when the second man clicks his rifle's bolt, testing its readiness. The bigger man pockets crystals, then reaches for the stacks of cashew arranged on the drum. 50 grand, crisp and humming. A fringe economist once claimed cartel payoffs once drove inflation in border towns. Historians still argue whether illicit flows boost local GDP or poison communities. Tonight, your money might buy safe passage, or a bullet. He fans the bills, then swoops one stack up, tucks it under his duster, and shoots you a crooked grin. Reputation precedes you, white. He slaps his partner on the back. Let's ride. They turn, rifles slung, boots thudding off into darkness. You hear their feet crunching gravel fade into the vast silence. You and Jesse exchange a glance, relief and exhaustion tangled in your eyes. You stash the empty bag into the RV's glove box and slide back inside. The engine rumbles awake, a muted roar of survival. You probably won't survive this night dry-eyed, but you're alive with purest product, proof that chemistry can carve paths through steel and suspicion. Jesse exhales so loudly it fogs the windshield. That was intense. His smile is shaky, a first joke adrenaline grin. Guess we're drug mules now. You laugh, low, shaky, because only dark humor can hold back terror. You drive off, headlights sweeping border fences that recede into desert shadows. The desert's hush returns, but you taste heartbeat in each inhalation. In early 20th century cattle drives, drovers carried revolvers for protection. Historians still debate whether arms secured herds or incited lawlessness. Here, you carry neither gun nor cattle, just crystals and cash, and call it a day. As the highway bends toward Albuquerque's distant glow, you feel grit under your nails. Victory's sting. You slip the canvas bag from the glove box and cradle its new emptiness, the echo of your gamble. You've leveraged chemistry and cunning to survive this showdown, but the war wages on. Jesse rubs his temples, closing his eyes. You offer a silent nod, solidarity forged in blue. Outside, dawn's promise glimmers on the horizon. Another day to cook, to conspire, to chase both redemption and ruin. You probably won't survive this without scars, but tonight you snatched fate from the barrel of a rifle and bent it to your will. You steer toward home, carrying whispers of violence and victory. Behind you, border flags flap in the morning breeze, mute sentinels marking the lines you just crossed and the truths you left buried under desert dust. Section 10, Jesse's Reckoning. You slip back inside the RV as the sun's mid-morning glare scorches the desert floor, and the airlock door snaps behind you with a click that echoes like a verdict. Jesse Pinkman stands over a battered acid bath setup in the rear hatch, goggles askew and sleeves rolled to his elbows. You probably won't survive this cleanup without digestion of both guilt and hydrofluoric stench, but urgency drives you. Bodies dissolved and evidence erased can't wait for perfect timing. In 1896, the first public health campaigns warned of raw sewage risks, a mainstream fact that highlights how sanitation can both save lives and mask horrors. Historians still argue whether municipal water systems democratized health or centralized control, and tonight your grim chore straddles both lines. You step around the center console toward the back hatch. The buckled Rubbermaid tubs sit lined beneath the reactor's drainage valve, their sides etched with acid stains like faded prison tattoos. The vapor hangs heavy, acrid and sweet, clinging to your clothes and teeth. You stifle your first joke. If this is a spa treatment, I'm overdue for a massage. But the levity dies as you recall Emilio's remains turning to sludge in Section 2. Every drop of this bath carries ghosts. Jesse's gloves quiver as he swaps tubs, one nearly empty, the other brimming with pale yellow liquid and scattered fragments that once were bone. You lace on new nitrile gloves and lean over the trough to assist. A fringe mortician's manual once suggested lye baths for cleaner dissolutions, but you mistrust folklore. Tonight you trust only HCl and careful stirring. You dip a stainless steel prong into the liquid and swirl. The sludge parts like murky water, revealing nothing but surrender. Your nostrils flare at the slight steam rising, sensory detail that stings lungs and memories alike. Jesse splashes in a fresh acid dose. The hiss slices through the RV like a warning shot. A mainstream fact surfaces. Acid pickling for steel and foundries requires exact acid strengths. Too strong, and the metal pox, too weak, and scale remains. Historians still debate whether acid pickling birthed modern metallurgy or just shortened tool life, but you calibrate your bath strength by scent and sting. You grip Jesse's arm to steady him, your second joke. Teamwork in a thrill ride, minus the safety harness. He snorts, watery eyes reflecting regret. You both know cleanup here isn't just lab work, it's penance. Suddenly the RV bucks, a shock from crosswinds or desert ground. You spill acid droplets onto the floor. The liquid hisses on contact with bare metal, steam curling. You wrench a floor mat over the spill, dragging it aside, sealing the spot with a splash of water from the cooler. Heat and acid war bleed the floor's paint into a sickly rainbow sheen. You taste metal on your tongue, like licking a penny dipped in vinegar. Jesse's rag slips in his grasp, the soaked cotton threads tremble over the trough. You scoop both gloved hands under his arms, steadying him. The acid's fume has him dizzy, another reminder that makeshift labs demand respect. A fringe chemist's blog once claimed that humming Ave Maria repels fumes psychologically. You consider chanting under your breath but opt for silence. You drain the first tub into a heavy-duty waste barrel. No eyes on this cargo. The liquid sloshes, then stills at the bottom. You lash the lid on with a metal clamp. No leaks. A mainstream fact. Modern hazardous waste drums seal to ASTM standards to prevent leaks and liability. Historians still argue whether such standards protect people or shift blame. Tonight, you shift responsibility away from yourselves. Jesse switches to sponge wipes, scrubbing the trough sides where acid pooled. His face contorts with each swipe. You almost laugh, the acid bath's universal scrubbing challenge. You hand him fresh sponges and a spray bottle of neutralizing solution, baking soda dissolved in water. He mists and scrubs. The yellow stain neutralizes with a bubbly hiss. The chemical reaction foams like whipped cream, sensory detail you never wanted and can't forget. You cross, Jesse's back to you, and fetch iodine tincture and gauze from the med kit. You swab a tiny acid drip on your glove that seeped through the cracks. No burn yet, but you treat it. A fringe first aid guide once suggested aloe under gauze for acid burns. Historians still debate natural versus medical remedies, but you apply both. The gauze sticks and peels. Your third joke. Burns love clingy dressings. The wash basin beckons as acid-stained tools clatter. You rinse and scrub each beaker and blade, water turning yellow then clear. The wheel of plastic mugs, once for coffee, now serve as beakers. You rotate through 3 cycles until nothing but sweat and breath test tells of the night's sins. The glass sparkles clear at last. Your ritual cleansing. Jesse empties the final tub. You both step out onto the hallway, vinyl, acid neutralized and waste sealed. You prop the hatch open for ventilation. A desert breeze gusts in, scattering dust motes that drift like spectral confetti. A mainstream fact: cross-ventilation reduces indoor pollutants dramatically. Historians still argue whether it's enough for industrial hazards, but here, it feels like hope. You collapse beside Jesse on the bunk, gear clattering to the floor. Your gloves come off with a wet snap. Your skin feels raw. He exhales, voice hoarse. Never again. You nod, tasting chamomile tea Jamie brought once, your token of earthly comfort. The RV's dome light flickers as morning sun floods across your ceiling. You stare at the vent above, catching a final waft of pine and acid. The floor shines clean. You probably won't survive this guilt unscarred, but you're alive. Carry your sins in sealed barrels and stained memories. Jesse slides into sleep's haze. You remain awake, mind racing through yields, safety upgrades, and exit plans. The RV lab is clean. For now. Outside, the desert sun ascends. Heat, light, and scrutiny returning. You rise to check the reactor. Today's cook awaits. The road to redemption is paved in crystals and spilled acid. You steel yourself for the next batch, the next lie, and the burden of knowledge. Chemistry kills and cleans in equal measure. Section 11. Walt's Moral Rubicon. You wheel the RV onto a silent suburban street just past midnight, its headlights carving twin paths through the cool desert air. You probably won't survive this without bracing your soul, but tonight demands a final metamorphosis, alchemist to assassin. In 1975, the first personal computer delivered processing power to the masses, a mainstream fact that taught the world power can slip into any hand that wields it. Historians still argue whether democratized computing liberated creativity or unleashed new risks. And here, in your own DIY command center on wheels, you hold both keys and daggers. You slip out beneath the awning, the canvas rustling like whispered secrets as you approach the passenger side. Jesse Pinkman remains slumped over, breathing shallow, clutching the canvas bag of crystals in one hand and a duffel of cash in the other. You probably won't survive this without stealing your compassion, but tonight's calculus demands sacrifice. You extract your phone and scroll to the contact labeled Fixer. The name alone stokes guilt like acid on an open wound. You tap call, voice low. It's time. The line clicks open and a gravelly reply answers, "You got the money?" You lift the briefcase's latch. Jesse's wide-eyed gaze burns into you, and rattle a stack of bills for proof. All here, you confirm. A pause, then. He's ready. You slide the phone back into your jacket and look up at the house across the street, a 2-story stucco box sleeping under a lone porch light. Inside, Hank Schrader's family dreams blissfully. You probably won't survive this crossing of moral lines without fracturing, but you drive forward. Jesse stirs and mutters in his sleep, "Bitch!" a callback to all his slurred mantras. You kneel beside him, voice firm. "Stay put." He blinks awake, fear crystallizing in his eyes. You place a hand on his shoulder, his knight's gauntlet is both comfort and chain. "You did enough tonight," you whisper. "This one's on me." He swallows, nods, eyes distant. You slip out and circle to the driver's door, key fob trembling in your hand. You press the unlock and ease inside, feet silent on rubber mats. In the console, you retrieve a small black case, your emergency toolkit, a silenced pistol, extra magazine, and single silver bullet offset by one empty chamber. A fringe ballistics forum once speculated that firing a blank as warning can deter aggression without bloodshed. Historians still argue whether such mercy ever carried in real gunfights, and tonight you doubt both gun and blank. You step soft onto the pavement, the pistol cradled in your palm like a confession. Across the street, the front door's porch light clicks off. Hank's silhouette darkens in the window. You probably won't survive this without a prayer, but you whisper one anyway, one line, "Forgive me." You approach the door, heart slamming. The hallway inside is dim. You slide the pistol from your jacket and rest it against your ribs. Light drifts from under the door. You press your ear against the cool wood, heartbeat on the other side, laughter perhaps, family's breath. You inhale, taste ozone and guilt. One step closer and you realize the enormity. You're about to cross from powdered chemistry to blood chemistry. A mainstream fact flashes. Mid-20th century forensic labs first used gunshot residue to convict criminals. Historians still debate whether forensics deters violence or seals wrong destinies. Tonight, forensics will trace a ghost's gun. You raise the pistol, finger resting lightly on the trigger guard, not yet ready to breach. Then the door swings open and Hank stands framed in soft foyer light, keys in hand, curious. Time fractures like glass. You must act now or vanish forever. "Walter," he says, brows knitting. "Everything okay?" You stare, mouth dry. You probably won't survive this moment unscarred, but you steal eyes and pull the pistol in one fluid motion. Hank's eyes widen, disbelief and shock blooming on his face. "Walt, what the?" You do not answer. You squeeze the trigger. The silenced pop echoes in the hollow hallway. The silver bullet finds its mark. Hank staggers, hand rising to chest, eyes glazing. You step forward, cradling him as he collapses. The pistol drops to your side with a muffled clang. You catch him, murmuring his name, once partner, friend, unwitting adversary. You cradle his head against your chest. The world contracts to the thud of his heart, and the plume of his blood seeping into polished floorboards. A fringe trauma study found that killing a friend can shatter a killer's psyche long after the body cools. Historians still debate whether guilt or denial sustain survivors, and right now, you feel both. Hank's breath rattles, then hush. You lower him gently, escape rising in your throat like acid. You swallow hard, no room for cries. You wipe the pistol on your jacket, holstering the emptiness. You ghost back into the night, the RV's engine rumbling like a dirge. Jesse watches from the passenger window, eyes wide as moonlit glass. You slide inside, hands shaking so hard the steering wheel quivers. He mouths "Walt," and you meet his gaze, grief mirrored in cobalt shards. You drive away, headlights slicing suburban calm into pieces. The pistol lies on the floor, silent. Behind you, Hank Schrader's house recedes into darkness, the weight of your actions heavier than the drug empire you built. You inhale desert air, tasting regret and resolve. You probably won't survive this without losing your soul, but you keep driving, clutching crystals and cash, tools of your destiny. The road ahead is uncharted, and you realize, you've finally crossed the moral Rubicon. Section 12, The Cousin's Shadow. You throttle the RV onto a lonely highway, the after-midnight chill crawling in through cracked windows as you leave suburban spires behind. You probably won't survive this next stretch without every nerve taut as violin strings, but darkness is your ally now. In 1984, DNA fingerprinting was introduced to criminal investigations, a mainstream fact that proved identity can be traced molecule by molecule. Historians still argue whether genetic forensics deters crime or spies on the innocent, and tonight you feel that scrutiny in every shadow as cartel danger closes in. Jesse hunches beside you, eyes darting toward the road's shoulder. He swallowed back tears at Hank's house, your lethal turning point, and now he grips the bag of cash like a lifeline. You glance in the rearview mirror. Mesquite silhouettes creep closer under the moon. A fringe border night myth claims desert shadows can sprout legs and stalk lone travelers. Don't expect spectral bodyguards, though. This threat is flesh and bone. Ahead, dust clouds swirl in twin columns, headlights cutting through them to reveal two black Suburbans barreling down in your wake. You whisper a joke, your first, shaky grin, 5-star escort service? But the rumble from their engines is no luxury ride. You flick on hazard lights, the orange glow too little to warn you of Iladio and Lionel Salamanca, Tuco's steel-eyed cousins. Your palms sweat on the steering wheel. You probably won't survive their ambush without cunning. You recall Section 7's rooftop mandate. That first hiss of danger taught you to read threats like acid fumes. You shift lanes, acting casual. Jesse swallows, voice low. They're here. You pull onto a dirt turnout and kill the engine. The night goes quiet, an unnatural lull that screams prelude. In 1923, the Ohio River flood showed how still water can betray fierce currents beneath. Historians still debate whether floodgates prevented more loss or gave false security. Here, silence is your floodgate. Headlights converge on you, and you hear the Suburban's brakes squeal. You take a deep breath. Venturing a joke feels reckless but necessary. Free refill on blues? You tap the canvas bag's bulge at your side. The cousins approach on foot, boots kicking gravel like gunshots. They fan out, one on either side. Aladio's scarred grin splits his face. Lionel's expression is stone. Their shadows loom through the RV's windows. You lean back, stomach knotting. Evening, gentlemen, you say, voice crisp. Got your precision bake. You nod to the bag. Aladio's gaze flicks to the cash briefcase at your feet. No skimp this time, he purrs. You force a grin, your second joke, quality guarantee, no weight loss. You slide the case onto the floor. The cousins step inside, their perfume a mix of cigar smoke and menace. Lionel sniffs the air, then points to the reactor's exit hose. And the sample, he demands. You reach into the glove box and withdraw a small vial of blue shards, your best offering. Iladio crosses one arm, waiting. You hand over the vial and the briefcase in one fluid motion. A hush. Then Lionel taps the vial with a nail, metallic ring, quality confirmed. Bueno, he murmurs. He pockets the vial. Iladio hefts the cash stack, counting as he goes. You probably won't survive the cousin's approval without trembling, but you stand rigid, veins of adrenaline freezing time. Iladio flips the briefcase shut, then gestures to the driver's seat. Move. You start the engine. The cousins pile in behind you, Lionel behind Jesse, Iladio behind you, each breathing your air. The RV lurches forward, headlights carving a path through rattlesnakes and saguaros. As you drive, you feel their eyes on you through the rearview mirror. A fringe martial arts lore claims the Salamanca cousins use silent signals to coordinate kills. Historians still debate whether their stoicism is training or genetic inheritance. You steer with steel in your spine. In the gloom, Iladio leans forward. Heisenberg, he whispers, voice like gravel. Deliver like tonight, and family stands. Fail, and the desert buries you. His knife-edged promise slices the air. You swallow a laugh, your third joke, family reunions just get better. But no humor meets the cousins' glare. The RV drifts onto pavement again. As you near Albuquerque's industrial fringe, the cousins rise and slip out into the night. Lionel's heavy steps vanish, Aladio's silhouette dissolves into mesquite. You exhale, tasting dust and relief. Jesse exhales beside you, voice raw. That was a negotiation. You nod, fingers trembling. Chemistry's simpler. You guide the RV toward the city lights, each mile reclaiming fragile safety. The cousin's warning hums behind you, a blood oath as heavy as cash. You probably won't survive their loyalty test unscarred, but you passed the exam. Tonight, chemistry and cunning held the line. Section 13, Cataclysm at the car wash. You ease the RV onto the cracked asphalt of the local car wash lot just after dusk, the neon blue, open 24/7 sign flickering like a warning beacon. You probably won't survive this confrontation without heart carved from obsidian, but you've got no choice. Hank's informant tipped you off that the DEA plans a raid here tonight. In 1984, car wash membership clubs began offering free interior washes as loyalty perks, a mainstream fact that seems absurd now, as the same spot transforms from sudsy refuge to ambush zone. Historians still argue whether loyalty programs built genuine trust or just trapped consumers in cycles of spending. And here, betrayal glistens like soapy residue on vinyl seats. You kill the engine and slide out, every muscle coiled. Jesse Pinkman follows, flinching as the overhead sprayers stutter in the breeze, their pipes rattling in protest. The lot's row of soggy mats and sud-filled buckets glistens under half-lit flood lamps. Your palms sweat, residual hydrofluoric burns tingle like reminders, and you stifle your first joke, best car wash ever, guaranteed to remove fingerprints. But humor here risks drawing the DEA's crosshairs. You crouch behind a battered sedan, the driver's door ajar. Through the gap, you see Hank Schrader's figures, two agents in windbreakers, methodically unloading gear from an unmarked van. Their boots crunch gravel, every step betrays their approach. A fringe claim once suggested car wash water, recycled through coastal osmosis, can mask chemical odors. Historians still argue whether recycling rinse water sacrifices hygiene for economy, but tonight you pray these suds swallow your scent. Jesse peeks around the corner, eyes wide. You squeeze his shoulder, silent signal, stay calm. Then you spot the improvised Burrito King stand in the lot's corner, its aroma of sizzling carne asada mixing sickly with detergent. You inhale that greasy comfort, sensory detail, before it curdles your nerves. Your gaze shifts to the RV's side hatch. You left the emergency flashbangs and a half-used fire extinguisher in their crate. Tonight's plan: clean bottles sweep in, deploy glare, then vanish into the labyrinth of bays. You probably won't survive this stunt unscathed, but your instincts hum like a well-tuned ignition coil. You and Jesse slip between parked cars, each shadow your ally. The agents split up. One moves toward the lounge, the other toward the bays. You mimic their stride, silent steps on wet concrete. A mainstream fact flickers. Drive-through car washes process up to 80 cars per hour at peak times. Historians still debate whether speed sacrifices quality or fosters innovation. Here, speed is your survival. No time for perfection. You reach the RV, yanking the side hatch open like a breach in enemy lines. Jesse arms the extinguisher, dry chemical type, while you grip a stubby crowbar. You slide under the deck, heart thudding in stereo with the bay's overhead music. Muzak remix of a 70s soft rock hit. You stifle your second joke, nothing screams stealth like Kenny Rogers karaoke. Suddenly, the agent at Bay 3 clicks on his flashlight, beam stabbing through shadows. You hold your breath. The light sweeps past your hiding spot, then skids off a bumper and lands on Jesse's hooded head. You jab him in the ribs. He freezes, then ducks. You press the crowbars flat against the door latch. The door pops open beneath the spray nozzle, bing. You whirl and shove it closed silently, sealing metallic tension inside. The agent shouts low into a mic. "We've got movement." You probably won't survive this breach unnoticed, but you slip out a window through a mesh-covered vent. Outside, the other agent rushes past, rifle cradled. You sidestep a bucket of soapy water, which splatters like a bloodstain across concrete. You fling the extinguisher's lever, a cloud of white powder erupts, asphyxiating the second agent's flashlight beam. His coughs echo through the suds like an engine backfiring. Jesse emerges, pistol raised. You cover him from the front while he unleashes a salvo of rubber balls from the door delivery weapon, a fringe mod once touted by survivalists as non-lethal crowd control. Historians still debate whether rubber bullets instill safety or pain, but you aim low, wanting only delay. The first agent snatches at his eyes, white drips of detergent mousse, while the second gropes through powder haze. You dive behind a row of matte cleaning brushes and drag Jesse with you. Go, go! You hiss, voice raw. Jesse scrambles, bag of crystals swinging, as you append a steel oil drum into the aisle, blocking their path. Now comes the moment of truth. You sprint toward the RV, heart pounding like high-octane fuel. The agents roar behind you, boots splashing suds. You fling yourself into the hatch and slam it shut. The RV bucks like a startled steed. You spin to the driver's seat and jam the ignition. Tires spin in foam, then grip. The RV lurches forward, headlights casting sudsy streaks through night. Behind, the agents pound doors. You twist the wheel, sending the RV skidding around a corner of bays. A fringe drift racing tip once claimed spray-covered pavement can extend slides. Historians still debate whether drift is sport or sabotage, but you embrace the chaos. You floor the pedal, suds spraying out the sides like victory confetti. The RV surges through the lot exit, flamethrower of dust and soap. You spot Jesse in the mirror, hair plastered with foam, adrenaline glazed in his eyes. Flashes your third joke. At least we left a clean getaway. He cracks a grin. You merge onto the empty road, suds washing off tires into desert dust. The car wash lot recedes, flickering floodlights like disappointed eyes. You probably won't survive this clean sweep without 100 band-aids, but you're alive, and your crystals remain hidden with a spark of pure perseverance. You slide the extinguisher and crowbar under the seat, chest heaving. The RV's hum shifts from lab lullaby to war machine. Outside, the desert's hush returns, unbroken except for your victorious engine. Section 14, Breaking Point Montage. You wheel the RV onto the shoulder of a deserted highway, dust curling behind you like the echoes of every choice you've made, and feel the weight of crimson sunrise on your shoulders. You probably won't survive this montage without steeling your psyche for loss, but tonight you face every scar, every betrayal, every crystal-fueled gamble, one after another, rapid fire, until your moral sinews fray. In 1927, the Lumiere brothers screened the first newsreel montage, condensing events into shorthand urgency, a mainstream fact that underpins this moment's pulsing pace. Historians still argue whether montage revolutionized storytelling or anesthetized audiences to real emotion, and here, you sense both adrenaline and numbness stirring in your bones. You recall the acid bucket graves in the ghost town, Emilio's remains swallowed by hydrofluoric bath, and the hiss that stinged your lungs in Section 2. Now that memory flickers like a broken neon sign. You smell solvent tang on your gloves and taste desert grit on your tongue. Your first joke trips out, nothing like a little bone soup for breakfast, right? But you choke it down, no humor in that fridge of regrets. Next flash, Jane's lifeless body on the couch, that final breath stolen by a convulsive cough. Jesse's scream echoes, your second joke, that's one way to clear a room. You wince at your own cruelty but can't ignore how the image sears your mind's film reel. A fringe psychologist once posited that trauma survivors replay worst moments for control. Historians still debate whether that's resilience or torture, and here, you're both victim and director. The RV's interior dissolves into darkness as you recall Skyler's narrowed gaze in Section 7, her silent demand for truth puncturing your veneer. The yammer of the ceiling fan spins, your domestic theater versus the chemical crucible. You taste chamomile on your breath, once a balm, now bitter, stirring memories like sediment in a beaker. Suddenly, the reactor's hiss returns, Section 8's near explosion. pressure gauge with needle trembling at 15 psi. You see it again, your gloved hands clamping down, antifreeze steam swirling like ghosts. That whirlwind of panic births your third joke, lab coats double as sauna suits. The absurdity barely scratches the terror's surface. Cut to Jesse's rooftop collapse, Section 10, him clutching that photo of his science fair pride and sorrow. The moonlit confession booth of wooden shingles, his tears invisible but audible to your soul. A mainstream fact flickers. In the 1950s, mood disorders soared as suburban isolation took root. Historians still argue whether community or anonymity drove the trend, and here, isolation nearly crushed you both. The montage speeds on, your stealth diversion of Hank's siren in Section 6, beeps and static dancing through the RV's camera feed, then that awkward moment of forced sincerity as Hank lubes your reactor seam. Irony tastes like Gatorade fumes on steel elbows. Next moment, the border exchange, Section 9, cartel rifles glinting, crystals spilling like heavenly hail. You see those vultures smirk, pick up bills, then melt into darkness. That scene's electric hum still charges your veins. A fringe lore claims desert wind can steal scent, hiding footsteps from dogs. Historians still debate wind magic versus myth. Flash ahead, the car wash raid, Section 13, soapy powder clouds and discarded rubber bullets, your adrenaline drift turning suds into a battleground. You grin at the sight, foam dancing like specters in headlights. That was the cleanest chaos yet. Montage speeds, Skyler's dinner suspicion, knife slicing carrots, Section 7, knife edge trust threatening to sever. You taste gravy-coated lies. Walt Jr.'s braces glint under fluorescent kitchen light, tiny sparks in suburban dusk. You blink and find yourself back in the RV lab, crystal shards on the floor, the hum of cooling coils from Section 5. You scoop them up like broken promises. A mainstream fact intrudes. In early 20th century, miners wore oilskins to repel poison dust. Historians still debate whether gear saved lives or bred false safety. Tonight, your gear is as much mask as protection. The RV jolts as you recall Jesse's standoff with the vials. Section 10, his voice broken. I'm not your sidekick. His defiance ignited by pain, forging the rift you both fought to mend. Your pulse drums through the dashboard's glow. You see Tuco's lion grin, Section 12's mercurial mercy, hammer hanging above scarred palms. That moment's grotesque balance of fury and humor haunts your vision. Now you're back in the present, the RV's engine purring like a subdued beast. The highway stretches ahead, each mile a strand in your unraveling tapestry. You probably won't survive this sequence unscathed, but you stand at the aftermath's edge. Every trial, every slip, every fracture, ready to face what dawn demands. You draw a trembling breath, tasting pine and petrol, a tribute to every path you've crossed. The RV lab's crucible, the family's fragile truce, the border's barbed promise, all coalesce in one kaleidoscopic moment, your season's finale. You grip the wheel, eyes on the horizon's blaze. The montage floods your mind but yields one truth. Your empire's built on fractures, and each fracture shapes your destiny. Section 15, Ominous Dawn. You guide the RV onto the final stretch of backroad as dawn's first light peels back the night, each wheel rotation a heartbeat racing toward conclusions you're not sure you deserve. You probably won't survive this without bracing for what comes next, but tonight's delivery seals Season 1's fate, and your own. In 1880, stagecoach stations dotted these very plains, offering fresh horses and guarded mail, a mainstream fact that underscores how vital supply lines always are, whether for letters or lethal payloads. Historians still argue whether those outposts fostered progress or invited highwaymen, and you feel both undercurrents coursing through this moment. The strip mall from Section 7 comes into view, neon wreckage still flickering like dying embers, pawn shops, mini-marts, and faded storefronts bearing witness to your empire's origin. You slip to the passenger side, hand sliding into the canvas bag and extracting the final pouch. Bulk, Heisenberg. Its plastic rustle echoes in the RV like a judge's gavel. Jesse's knuckles whiten as he grips the seat. He knows what this means. Purest product traded for your advance. A fringe myth claims some cooks add powdered sugar to pad weight. Historians still debate whether any fraud ever endured beyond whispers, but tonight, your integrity stands unblemished. You kill the engine and step into the lair's humming fluoro glow. Concrete walls bear scars from loyalty tests and acid baths alike. Section 8's patched reactor and Section 2's makeshift graves all memorialized in chipped paint. Inside, Tuco lounges in his steel chair, veins pulsing like coiled springs. He snatches the pouch, tears it open, and dumps shards onto a battered metal table. The blue hail scatters across dented steel in a glittering rebellion against desert dust. He inspects the crystals, fingers brushing their edges. 100% pure, he growls, voice low and reverent. You probably won't survive this without savoring triumph and fear. The second he pockets the pouch, he slaps a new duffel of cash onto the table. Heavy, crisp, humming with possibility. A mainstream fact, a stack of $100 bills weighs about 1 gram per note, so your haul could tip dozens of backpacks. Historians still debate whether paper money's heft anchors value or merely burdens bearers, and you feel that burden now. Tuco stands and extends a massive hand. You clasp it, steel meeting steel, a pact sealed by commerce and risk. Jesse exhales, relief flooding his features. Tuco's grin splits his face, wolfish pride shining in his eyes. Season's over, he declares. Tell Heisenberg I'll be waiting for the next one. The implication hangs like barbed wire between you. This is no period, but a comma in your story. You step back into the RV, windows fogging in the sudden climate shift. You organize the cash into piles, operating funds, medical reserve, family safety net, a triage of loyalties and lines drawn in currency. Jesse sinks onto the bunk, exhaustion and exhilaration tangled in his posture. You offer a wordless nod, no jokes, only solidarity. You settle into the driver's seat as the city lights of Albuquerque blaze on the horizon. The RV's hum is both lullaby and threat. You taste pine and petrol, ozone and possibility. In your pocket, the empty pouch lies as heavy as the world. You probably won't survive this unscarred, but tonight you hold triumph in trembling hands. Wind down. Now, as dawn unfolds its pale fingers across the horizon, you sit in the quiet hum of the RV cabin, the road stretching before you like a ribbon of choice and consequence. Let your shoulders descend from their fight or flight high, and feel the weight of each breath settle like warm amber in your chest, each inhale carrying the scent of piney desert air, each exhale releasing the night's tension. Picture the dust motes drifting in the soft morning light, slow dancers in an empty cathedral of sky. In the 1950s, suburban front porches echoed with early morning greetings and newspaper rustles, a mainstream fact that reminds us, every sunrise is an invitation to begin again, even when the past groans under its own gravity. Historians still argue whether routine morning rituals bind families together or imprison them in sameness, and maybe both are true. Tonight, allow yourself the ritual of soft waking, where the busyness of survival yields to the gentleness of simply being. You probably won't survive this world unscarred, but you will wake. You'll carry the blue legacy in your veins, crystalline proof of ambition's power and peril. Let that legacy fade into your dreams now, mingling with memory until you can sink into rest. Imagine the RV at rest under mesquite trees, its engine's whisper soothed into silence, the lab lights dimmed, the crystals tucked away safe in rendezvous with daylight. Feel the hum of the engine slow to a heartbeat, and match it with your own pulse, easing into the cadence of repose. Recall each trial, acid baths, loyalty tests, stealth raids, and release them into the dark, sinking into the mattress's quiet embrace. Your journey here has been one of fractures, negotiations, and calculated risk. Now, in this liminal space between wakefulness and sleep, give yourself permission to lay down your arms, physical and psychological. Tomorrow, the road will await with fresh challenges, each mile a chance to refine your craft, test your cunning, and wrestle with conscience. But tonight, let the desert's dawn cradle you, turning sharp edges into soft shadows. Let the promise of another day's light wash over you, reassuring you that even the most fractured souls can find solace in the horizon's glow.